Okay, good evening, everybody. Another installment of Greek for your souls. As I was looking through the lesson and going over some other lesson notes that I have, including the book New Testament Greek for Beginners, I've been reviewing that again, and I realized what a daunting task it is when you first take on Greek, the Koine Greek, the biblical Greek, or probably any Greek, of course. And I think I'll start off with a statement right from the beginning that this is a long-term project. And there's going to be some of you there that you're not really going to use Greek a lot for your studies. Unless you're a pastor and you're going into the greater depths of theology as either as a pioneer or as a sort of a leading theologian, really you only need as much Greek as it is that you can understand what the teachers are talking about. And for me, when I first started off with Max and we were doing some fairly serious Greek studies, it was you come to different stages as you learn, just like you learn any other language. And that's another point actually, because being Filipinos and you all have probably two or three, even some of you might even have four languages that you know. So you've gone through that learning process and you understand what it's like and how you do go through different stages. And what you'll find with the Greek is it's probably quite unlike any other language that you've learned before, though there are sort of principles and philosophies that you can apply. And one of them being is that you have to look at what is the real usage of it. And again, unless you're going to be like a theologian, or you're going to really, what's the word for it? There's going to be very few of you that actually need to get into the higher echelons of Greek study. But what you do need is to be able to understand it when other people are talking about the Greek, when they're exegeting from a verse and they're explaining that something is in a certain tense, or there's a certain grammar rule or a grammar form that needs to be applied. And you need to understand that. And the same goes for the Hebrew as well, actually. Now, I should reiterate that my qualifications are not as a Greek teacher, and I'm having to go back and review a lot of stuff as we go through this, which is good for me. And I do enjoy studying Greek, and I enjoy seeing the words sort of forming themselves into proper sentences I can understand as I'm reading through my Greek Bible. So that's really nice, and I really would encourage you to get to a state of Greek where even if you have to, in fact, I think even the Greek scholars, they have to look at the tables and charts to find out what form certain words are, and then they can work out what the sentences are. But maybe after 2 years of fairly solid Greek, you should be able to do that. I think, where you can look at a sentence and you can see the words coming out, and you can really get a greater sense of meaning and what a passage is saying. There's no substitute for actually knowing the Greek and being able to read it like that, of course. Again, you're going to have different levels of it. What I would say to you, those that would struggle with the Greek, is that just try to keep up as best you can. Some of you might just think that it's not for you. And I think in that case, as far as getting credits for this course, if you've gone through at least the first semester, hang with it for a semester and see if you can keep up. At some stage, if you're not keeping up, obviously you're just going to fall behind, and everything's going to start seeming quite meaningless. And I don't want to force you to have to do something that is just going to be a waste of time for you. And then we can have other studies, other subjects where you can pick up credits in other subjects as well, to make up the full course of credits to get the diploma, which we will offer at the end of the course. So again, this is not going to be for everybody. Some people they won't be able to get their heads around it. It's just the way that different people are built differently. I sort of assume that men with the gift of pastor teacher, the Holy Spirit would possibly give them some sort of extra, like a module or like a plug-in with their spiritual gift, where they can learn and understand the original languages as well. But yeah, for a lot of us, it's just some struggle, and I don't think anybody knows how to learn a language too naturally. It just comes through sheer repetition and good concentration on studies. So I thought I'd put that out at the start, and just to reiterate again, try it out for at least a semester and see if you can keep up. And at the end of that, at the end of the first semester, if you're still struggling with it, then let me know, and we'll try to look at something else. But I'm going to go through as slowly as I think is necessary for us to build up an understanding. And we're going to do this a lot of repetition, and we'll just see how we go. Okay, so what I want to do to apply what I just said, the repetition, is I'm going to go back to the lesson that we were doing last week. This is from Jeremy Duff's, what's it called? Elements of Fundamental Greek, I think, the Elements of Greek. We were in chapter 2, and in the last lesson we did pages 1, 2, and 8. And I skipped out the others because these pages, the 1, 2, and 8, they focused on the verbs. And then this week we're going to do some other pages in chapter 2 of the same book, which focus on the nouns. And then there's going to be some sentences we can put together. Okay, but again, I'm just trying to do this little by little. If you remember last week at 2.1, we had the present tense of the verb luo. Remember, the stem is the first two letters, and then at the end of the root verb you have here, and then you have a letter or a group of letters which would tell you which person is speaking. And again, to run through them, the first person singular, which really we translate as I, is luo. So I am untying, or I untie. This is present, active, indicative, we would call it. Second person singular, lues. So you'd say you are untying, or you untie. And then lue, luomen, luete, luusen, or luusi. Okay, so these are just what we call this is the present active indicative of the verb, and it depends again if you're going to have the first, second, or third person speaking, if it's singular or plural, and all that information just comes out in the one word. Okay, so you've got the stem, and then you have to remember the endings for the verbs. Okay, so that was that for there, the endings, the root. Okay, they have it again at 2.1.1 here. I don't think I've sent you the chapter of this, so what I'll do, I think after this lesson I'll send this complete chapter into the Facebook Messenger, and you can download that and have a look through this. I didn't want to do it all at once because again it gets a bit confusing. Okay, but with lu you have the endings here. It's just written in a different form. It's the same as we had above. U, ace, a, omen, ete, usen. And those first ones there, these are the singular forms, and then you have the plural forms, first person, second person, and third person. What I will actually do, because trying to get us sort of started as it is, even as just basic sentences, is that we'll just keep going back to this concept of like the verb endings, and then we'll have what's called the cases for the nouns, and using the book that we have here, the Elements of Greek, and then some other grammar materials, until I think that we've got a fairly firm grounding, and then we can move on to other concepts, of which there are very many. Okay, so I'll skip down through here, and then we had these examples which you wrote out: lego, legate, lege, legomen, legete, and legusen, saying I am saying. So the stem there is lambda, epsilon, gamma, that would be leg, and then you put on the ending to tell you that, and actually they call it a conjugation. Okay, so the conjugation is the way that they end up. I believe that is when you put what are they calling it here? Okay, so the pattern of the form of the verb, a particular set of endings on the stem, is called a conjugation. So, as a technical term, you're saying, well, what's the conjugation for this verb, or what does this conjugation mean? It's the last letter or letters on the end of the stem. For the verb to see, or actually I am seeing, blepo, blepes, blepe, blepomen, blepeter, and blepusen. Now these are present active indicative. I should point out at this stage, in the present active imperative, I might have mentioned this, but if I haven't, the endings are exactly the same. So in the singular, it's going to be you have, this plural, so it's only in the plural. The epsilon, tau, epsilon is the conjugation for the present active indicative, and indicative means the mood. It's sort of like the type of action that's happening, and it's also the same in the imperative, but the context will tell you what's the same. How do you translate that? Okay, so that's just a bit of a review. And then you had the nouns that you went through. We'll just do it quickly again for review here. Go, to lead. Akuo, to hear. Balo, I throw. Blepo, I see. See, so if it was you see, blepes, and then blepe is he sees. Didasco, you see this word a lot. Echo, lambano, lego, luo. And then the six, like they have like the phileo, which meant I love. So zeteo, kaleo, laleo, I say or I speak. Poieo, teireo, phileo. And we're doing this as a review because in the next section we go through to today, we're going to see some of these verbs up here as well. And then the 14 nouns, hopefully you've remembered these already, but again the repetition to help you remember. Angelos, angel. Adelphos, brother. Artos is bread. Doulos, slave. Theos, God, or they put a small g, so it can like be a demonic god, a man-made god, or you can have God, which would be the God. Cosmos, world. Kurios, Lord or Master or Sir. It's like boss, you say boss, be curious actually, that's probably the word they use for that. Logos, word or message. Nomos, oikos, uranos, oklos. Oklos, there's not the rough breather there. Oklos, huios, and Christos. And these are all in the first person, singular, okay, because they're finishing off with the Omicron sigma here. Okay, now these are the articles. I'll get into the articles later. And there's two other words you had here, anthropos and laos, okay, as the people. Okay, so that's what we did in the last lesson. Now what I'll do is I'll switch back over to the other slide here. And this is the same chapter, except I've got all the pages in this one. And we're going to be starting off at 2.3 today. Okay, and this is getting into the nominative and accusative cases. Now, cases apply to the nouns. Every noun is going to be, it's going to have its case form, and they're only introducing nominative and accusative cases here, but in most systems they have 5 cases. Okay, some systems go to 8. They call it 8-case system, so they're sort of splitting things up even further. It's just a question of what we call semantics. Actually, is how words are being used to describe something. But in this case, we've got the nominative and the accusative. Now, nominative relates to the subject of the sentence, the one that's doing the action, and accusative is the one that's receiving the action. So here we have the example, and they take it out of John 6:24, aden. Now it's a funny verb to use for an example in one of the first chapters of a book. It means to see. The crowd saw. Now, aden is they've used a funny declension. It's actually from the word horao. Horao is the present active indicative of the word to see, and it's a verb that changes its form a lot to become adeo or aden. In this case, I don't want to explain too much here, but that they probably could have used a better example. But this is an aorist tense. It's not actually. It's not a present tense. So with an aorist tense, this has changed something else. But we're really focusing on the noun here. So that's the verb. Aden means to see, and actually he, she, it. So this is second person singular. Oh, sorry, third. Sorry, third person singular. And the reason it's singular is because the crowd, usually you think of crowd as being plural, but the word crowd, you have a crowd or the crowd. It's like saying the team, the football team. It's actually singular, even though there's a lot of people there, but the word is describing sort of one particular group of people. So you have to be a little bit careful about that in any language, thinking there's something singular or something plural, but the word crowd in itself is singular. Now, if you had S on the end, the crowds, then it would be plural, of course. So here, the verb here is in that's the third person singular. Okay, but the word is aiden. That means to see, or they saw, and who saw. Now, here we have the noun. Okay, now it's in the nominative case. So hoklos, the word hoklos is for crowd, and then we have the, and this is like what they call the definite article here. Let's expand that a bit. Okay, so you can see that the order is a little bit different from what you're probably used to, but the order you're going to see eventually is that the order of the words in a sentence don't matter, because the thing is, as long as you realize where the subject is, you realize where the object is, or the nominative and accusative case, which will tell you that, and you can see where the verb's going, and then you can sort of pick out what's happening. So it's a little bit of a different style from what we're used to with sort of modern languages, or the languages in English and Filipino that we speak. So again, here is hoklos. This is the subject of the sentence. These are the people doing the action, which they call the nominative case. Hoklos aiden, the crowd saw. Now, again, in this example, they probably should have put what you'd call it the object of the sentence, or what would be the accusative case. You should have another word. So if we put on the end for the crowd saw Jesus, for example, Jesus is the nominative for Jesus. So if Jesus is doing something, you say Jesus saw, and that would be like Jesus, and then ade, because that would be second person. That's third person. So again, it'll be aiden, sorry for him. So if it was Jesus in the nominative, and you could probably ho Jesus, and then aiden, Jesus saw. But let's put the word Jesus into the accusative, and that would be to Yesun. Okay, so if you did have it, you'd be saying aiden ho hoklos to Yesun, and that would be the crowd saw Jesus. Now, usually put the article on there. It looks like the Jesus, but with nouns, with people's nouns, they often put the article in as well. Okay, that's just something else we'll have to deal with later. Okay, and then you have in Mark 6:34. Now we're going to have to see the same word, but this time the crowd are the ones being seen. So we change the word crowd into the accusative case. Aiden, polun, oklon. Now the word aiden, remember this is it's the verb to mean he, she, or it saw. He, she, or it saw. So we don't have to have the subject or the nominative case to tell us. See, in the verb itself, it's telling us, is it a he, or he, she, it? It's not going to differentiate from that. Is it I? Is it you? Is it he, she, it? Singular or plural. Okay, so in this case, we have to translate as either he, she, or it saw a great crowd. The context might tell you, for example, they saw John walking in, or Jesus walking, or something. If it was Mary, for example, Mary came to the mountain, and then it says Aiden Polun, then you would assume that we're talking about Mary, and that would be she, so you translate that as she. But Aiden, he, she, or it saw, and so we don't need to put the word he, she, or it outside of that word. It's all explained in the verb. And then Polun Hoklon. And the word Polun means to be great. It's an adjective, and even adjectives, they decline. They have their own what we call declensions according to the noun. So they have to fit the noun. And Oklon is the crowd, and then Polun, and we'll get into adjectives later, but that matches with Oklon. Okay, and often you'll see that with the adjectives and the adverbs, the endings will actually match. So this would normally be omicron noon, but in the case of Pauline, it does change. That's an exception. So they haven't given us two very easy examples to get that sentence from, but hopefully through this, at least you'll see we're focusing on the nouns, okay, and what is the noun doing? Okay, is it the subject or is it the object? In this case. So here we have what's called the nominative case for the crowd, and they're the ones doing the action they're seeing. And in this case, Auckland, okay, they should also probably have, because they're following Bible verses, so they can't change it, but if it was he saw the great crowd, then you would have ton, because the article changed about ton Auckland. So in this case, John 6:24, the crowd is the nominative case, and in Mark 6:34, it's in the accusative case. Okay, now don't worry too much if it's a little bit confusing, because I'm just trying to put out these basic concepts to start off with, and once we go through some more examples and some other tables and things like that, you'll see how it all sort of fits together. Okay. Now 2.3.1, you have the forms of logos. Remember, logos means a word or a speech or even a body of words, actually. Very rarely does it actually mean a word, as in sort of the use of one particular word. Okay, but nouns like verbs are inflected in Greek. So this means that each noun will have a stem and an ending. The stem denoting or telling us the basic meaning of the word, and the ending communicating more precise information about the function of the word in this particular sense. So a noun occurs in one of 5 cases. Now we've just had 2 as an example, the nominative and the accusative. So there's 3 other cases that we'll need to learn, and these are the forms used to indicate the word's function in the sentence, such as being the subject, which was the nominative case, and in either the singular or the plural. Okay, so ultimately with the case forms, you're going to have, usually with a nominative, that's the subject, and what they call a vocative, which is like sort of a calling. They often double up, it's the same. But if you take the 5 cases, that's nominative, you have nominative case, there's what's called the genitive case, which represents possession. You have the dative case, more extensively they call the dative, locative, instrumental, of means. That's another kind of a case, the dative, and then you have the accusative, which we just had, and then the vocative. That's the 5 cases, and then you have that singular and plural. So there's going to be 10 particular verb endings that you need to learn for one word, like logos. And then the other thing is that these are what they call the declensions, but there's 3 kinds of declensions as well that all the Greek words will fit into. So you've got to remember the declensions for different words. Like those 10 endings will be the same for maybe a third of the Greek words, and then you have to have different endings for another third. So it's a lot of homework, let's just say. Okay. So where do we go here? Okay, so a noun occurs in one of 5 cases. That's the forms used to indicate the word's function in the sentence, such as being the subject, and in either the singular or the plural. So whether a noun is singular or plural is called its number, which shouldn't be confused with verbs being in the first, second, or third pronouns, of course, because you have first person, second person, third person, and then you have singular or plural. So if we're defining between singular and plural, that's the number. Okay, the pattern of endings for a noun is called a declension. So going through them is called declining it. And we'll go through declension charts, and that'll show you exactly how a word is formed. And then you can see, this noun must be in the genitive plural case, for example. Okay, so while most verbs, so they're going back to verbs here, conjugate like luo, nouns fall into a number of different declensions. And again, I just meant there's 3 main types of declensions. We will first learn the declension of logos, which means word. And so this is a common declension here. Now again, there should be 5 cases down here, but they're trying to start us off very gradually. They don't want to have us to get too much of a headache straight away. So they're just giving us the two cases of the nominative and the accusative case. The singular is logos, so the stem of the noun will be like lambda, omicron, and gamma, and then the omicron sigma on the end. That explains to you that this is the singular nominative. Now, if you took the same stem and put omicron noon on the end, and omicron nu, that would be the accusative. Omicron iota, that's the nominative plural, and then omicron upsilon sigma, that becomes the accusative plural. Okay, so normally in a list you'd actually have 10 words down to the bottom, but here again they're just keeping it short and simple for now. So using logos as a pattern, you can work out the nominative and accusative forms, both singular and plural, of many other Greek nouns. Some are listed in the vocabulary at the end of this chapter, so you can look through those again soon. Now, so here's the example. Adelphos, which means brother, and there's no article at the moment, so we don't know if it's our brother or that brother, but if it doesn't have an article, we just usually say our brother. And so Adelphos, that means he's the nominative singular. Adelphon, that would mean he's the accusative singular. Adelphoi, that's the nominative plural. Adelphus, I guess that's how you'd say omicron upsilon together, like it's called a diphthong. If you have two nouns together and they're forming a sound together, it's called a diphthong. And in any language, in English, we call it a diphthong. So, but you see diphthongs in every language where there's two vowels coming together. Adelphus. And then you had the word for Lord, kurios. So omicron sigma ending. This tells us it's nominative singular. Kurion, again nominative, that's accusative singular. Kurioi, kurios. Okay, so for example, if you were talking about you saw the Lord, and you're seeing the Lord, so or you could say I see the Lord, so that would be blepo, I see, and then you can just say kurion. Okay, you'd have to use kurion here because he's the object. That's in the accusative case. Okay, if you said the Lord saw me, then you could say something like kurios, you'd have him as the subject, and then it would have to say in the third person, because he's in the third person, so that'd be blepe, and then eme is the pronoun. Okay, so just so you know which, how things fit into a sentence there. So what case and number are the following words in? Actually, I'll let you do this for your homework, okay? So you can stop the slide right here and think about this and write this down. So this is in practice 2.3.1. I think I made a note there. Okay, so arton. You'll have to check the words at the back as well. I can give them to you, I guess. Arton is bread, angeloi. See, that's angels, because it's in the plural there. Horanos, heaven. Huioi, sun. Actually, this is plural, so sons. Hoklos, crowd. Theus. Now, here we see this is the word theos, normally in the singular, but here they put it into the plural. Okay, so this is gods. Douloi, for slaves, and nomon, which means law or a law. Okay, but your job would be to tell me, you write out one arton, what case and number are the following words in. Okay, I'll give you the first one. So arton is bread, and its nominative case is artos. That's how you'd normally see it in the lexicon, but it finishes off with the nu here, so that tells you it's in the accusative case and it's singular. So here you'd write afterwards singular, accusative singular. Okay. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. So that's your homework for practice 2.3.1. You've got 8 questions there. Okay, I'll carry on through. I'd sort of like to get through. I think we're at 2.3 and we'll go through to 2.4. And there's a little bit for 2.5, so it probably might be an hour's lesson. Okay, so the meaning of the nominative and accusative cases. In English, word order distinguishes subject from object. So the subject comes before the verb, the object after the verb. Subject, verb, object. I see the man, and then you can switch it around and say, I was seen by the man, and then, so then things become passive and active. Thus, the dog bites the man means something rather different from the man bites the dog, obviously. If you've got the dog bites the man, the dog is the subject and the man is being bitten. And the man bites the dog. In this case, the man is the subject and the dog is the object. So in Greek cases, distinguished subject. In Greek, the cases distinguish. So we're talking about cases, the 5 cases that we'll be studying. The cases distinguish the subject from the object. Word order does not matter. Okay, so 2.3.3, forming a sentence, we now need to put together a verb and one or more nouns to form a sentence. Now, just the word blepes means you see, because remember the subject of the action is actually put into the verb. Okay, so blepo, remember, with the omega on the end, was I see, and blepes tells you automatically, obviously the blep means that somebody is seeing or something is seeing, and then you have it in the second person, singular, so blepes, you see. Now you can put the object onto that. Okay, so this would be angelon. Angelon means a single angel. Okay, one angel. He's in the accusative case. So blepes, you see an angel. And then if you're seeing lots of angels, you shouldn't really be seeing angels at this stage in history. Though you might be ministering to angels and not know that they're angels. Once you get to heaven, of course, we're going to see millions and millions of them. But you see angels, here would be blepes and gelus. Okay, so again, you've got the verb with the ending on it, and then angelus, which means angels. And that's the accusative form of the accusative plural form of angels. There's no word for a. Indefinite article in the Greek. This logos means word or a word, and the context will make it clear. Okay, I'll just skip over that. Some of the information it's all relevant, I guess, but you can look through that. I'm just going to go through the main important parts to try to keep this as smooth as possible. Okay, there's a note here. If the verb is in the first or second person, I, we, or you, there's unlikely to be a separate subject because the verb itself contains the I, we, or you. However, if there's a separate subject, the kings or girl, the mountain pigs, then the verb will be in the third person. He, she, or it. Okay. I think I should have just skipped over that. Okay, that's a little bit confusing for now. Okay, so here's the examples they give to us. Blepete. Okay, that's you see. Now this is plural. They didn't tell us here, but blepete, as if it's you singular, that's blepes, but blepete is you see. Angelos, blepe, and see blepe here is just he sees, third person, he, she, it sees, and they're giving you the subject, angelos. Now you know this is subject again because it finishes omicron sigma. Now if you had the word angelon, and then you had the word blepe, just have a think about that. How would that translate? See, this is in the accusative, this is nominative case, angelos, so the angel is the subject in blepe. So, this translates as an angel sees. But if the word here was angelon, blepe, what's happening now? Then angelon will be in the accusative case, so he becomes the object of the sentence. So he sees an angel. And when we haven't sort of said who the subject is, it could actually be he, she, or it sees an angel. Okay, so that's where you see the differences come in. Blepete, angelon, and again this is plural, so you people, or you crowd of people, you plural, see an angel. Doulos, blepe, angelon. Doulos is in the nominative case, so he's the one, the slave there is the one doing the action, and then that agrees with what's here. Blepe, he sees, and you wouldn't say he, the slave, sees, we just say he sees an angel. So you sort of, if you do have the nominative case here, we take the he out of here, the pronoun out of the verb, if it's understood that this is the subject of the action. So he sees an angel. Du loi, blepusen, and gelon. So these are slaves. There, again, this is the nominative case. Blepusen. Now they, see this is a third person here, okay, but it's plural because there's many slaves, and they see one angel, they see an angel. Du loi, blepusen, and gelus, slaves see angels. So here's the 3 steps to translation. You work out the cases of the words, work out why the different words have the cases they do, and then translate the sentence accordingly. Yeah, okay. So yeah, once you do a few of these, it should come quite naturally. And we're just starting off with very, very basic sentences. Okay, in this case, they're giving us the example, Kurios eke doulos. So the Lord here, he's in the nominative form, eke, he has, and then he has slaves. The Lord has slaves. Oh, sorry, it's our Lord. There's no article on there, sorry. So yeah, our Lord or Lord has slaves. But usually would say our Lord has slaves. Okay, we can skip down here. Okay, now let's, I'll do the first one here for your homework. And then you're going to have to do these for your homework. This is practice 2.3.3 now. Okay, so you have to work it out in your mind what each word is. Okay, and you've got all the vocabulary here. If you download the this chapter, you've got the vocabulary words at the end, and you've got all the charts that you need just based on chapter 2 here. So adelphos, didaske, oklos. Oklus it should be. So adelphos, a brother, and he's in the nominative case. Didaske, and from the word didasko, which means I teach, but here is didaske, he teaches, crowds. So our brother teaches or is teaching, and we're not separating what kind of present tense it is here, but we know it's present tense. So our brother is teaching crowds. So and this is plural of crowds actually. So our brother is teaching crowds. Okay, so you can try out your hand at the from numbers 2 down to 10, and see here you've actually got to translate these back into the Greek. So going from Greek to English and then English to Greek. Okay, so let's practice 2.3.3 for you. You can have a read about the definite article yourself, okay, but we'll get onto those later. And then you just see the basic forms there. So, for example, ho logos, ton logon. If you're using like that word instead of just saying word or up word. So these have to match the articles have to match the noun that they're going with, and sometimes you can have the articles separate. The article is separated from its noun, and there might be a verb, and there might be other words in the middle. So you sort of got to chase down what's matching up with what. It's very important to understand that concept, because this is why some translations go wrong, because people, they're not matching up the articles with the nouns here. Okay, there's some examples there. Blepes ton angelon. So this would be a you see. Blepes, that's right, you see the angel in this case. Okay, remember blepes, that would be you, singular, see, and then the angel. Hoi angeloi, blepusen, in this case, the angels as the nominative, and you've got the article there, so it's not just angels now, it's the angels they see. And anthropos, blepe, tous angelus. Here we have a person, there's no article there, otherwise it would be ho anthropos. So a person, blepe, he sees, but we said that person, a person sees the angels. Okay, and I'll give an example here. See, ho logon cannot be right, because ho goes with, that's the article for the nominative, whereas logon is an accusative. It's in the accusative case. Okay, so that wouldn't be right, but sometimes if you see that together in a sentence or very close together, the whole would have to relate to something else. Okay. Special uses of the definite article. So names often uses, but not always, it uses a definite article before a name. Ho David. I gave the example, Ho Jesus would be Jesus in the nominative. Abstract nouns, and talking about God as well. Writers from a monotheistic perspective will also normally use the article before theos. So often we see the word the God. In fact, many times when God is mentioned, it's you have the article with that, but they just translate it as God with a capital G. But if you saw it in the Greek, it looks like the God. Okay, and some more homework for you. Okay, so this is at practice 2.4 and 5. Okay, so just try your hand at those. I've tried to explain in as simple terms as possible, and the book, they have their explanations there as well. And you've got the vocabulary on here. So I'll resend this into the link. Okay, so for your homework, I'll just go back to what you've got for your homework here. Is at, we had it up. Where was it here? That's 2.3.1. So talking about the case and the number the following words are in. Okay, so you have to go back to, have that small chart there, and it'll tell you. You have to remember what the word means here. Again, aton, remember, is bread, and this is in the accusative case. So you would say, probably you should give me the meaning of the word. So you say bread, possibly, and then this would be accusative singular. And then angeloi, for example, and that would be nominative plural. Yes, not angels, nominative plural. Okay, so you got 2.3.1 and there's the next one, I'll speak to this one here. 2.3.3, translating these sentences. Greek to English and English to Greek. And then to finish off, just down at the bottom there, you've got these sentences here as well. So that's 2.4 and 2.5, let's say. Okay, so hopefully that's enough for you. If you can't get your head around it, don't worry, just try your best, and then I'll see what sort of answers come in, and then I'll see what we need to work with. But for the next couple of weeks, we're just going to sort of work around these concepts as well. And from this book here, you can review the whole of chapter 2 again. There's only, I don't know how many pages, 8 or 9 pages perhaps. And then also we'll start off in another book as well, which is doing these same concepts, but just they'll present them slightly differently. And so with all these different concepts that we're seeing, then hopefully it'll stick in our heads. And then once we've got this thing nailed, we can get our heads around that, then we can move on to the next concepts as well. Okay, so have fun with that. That's interesting.